Welcome back to Legacy Labs. Today we're going to talk about AI, but we're going to talk about it from a slightly different angle. Because most of the public conversation around AI is usually focused around the output. So you'll get things like, did AI write this? Is this original? Is it too generic? Is it replacing human work? And those are fair questions. I'm not saying that those questions don't matter, but I think the framing is way too narrow. Because for a lot of high demand users, the most important thing that AI does is not simply produce answers. It creates a thinking space. And that's a very different thing. And an answer machine can give you a response, and then the conversation's over. A thinking space can give you somewhere to put the idea before it disappears, somewhere to test it, rearrange it, argue with it, and see if that idea actually has structure underneath. And that distinction matters. Because for some users, the advantage is not just speed, it's not just automation, it's not just productivity. The advantage is containment. AI gives overloaded thought somewhere to go before it fragments, stalls, disappears, or collapses under its own pressure. That's the structure behind the spark. The spark was already there. The structure was missing. So the surface problem. So what people focus on. So most people will focus on the output. They'll look at the post, the essay, the email, the summary, the caption, the image, the code, and they'll ask, did AI make this? Did AI write this? Is this original? Was this lazy? Is this too generic? And those questions matter, again. But they skip something very important. They skip what happens during the interaction. Because for a lot of people, the value is not only the final answer. The value is in the process. It's being able to bring a half-formed idea into a space where it can become visible. That matters, especially for people carrying a lot of cognitive load. A high-demand user might be managing multiple projects, complex decisions, fast-moving ideas, unfinished drafts, emotional pressure, research fragments, professional stakes, creative pressure, strategic ambiguity, and all different kinds of patterns that they could feel before they can explain. That is a lot to hold in your head. And the issue is not always a lack of thought. Sometimes the issue is that it's too much thought and it's arriving without enough structure. So what people actually miss. So this is where AI becomes interesting. It's not because it knows everything. It's not because the answers that it gives you are good or should be trusted right away. But because it creates a responsive container, right? So you can bring a fragment into an AI space. You can bring a phrase, a contradiction, a draft, a screenshot, an instinct, a problem that you might have, you keep thinking about, you can't quite name yet. And instead of having to make the idea perfect before you can work with it, you can start shaping it while it's still messy. And that's not the same thing as outsourcing thinking. Sometimes that is the first stage of making thinking visible. That is the piece that people always miss when they say AI did it. Because not all AI use is the same. There's a big difference between asking AI to create something from almost nothing and using AI to develop material that already has human context, pressure, judgment, memory, and meaning behind it. Those are completely different workflows. In low context use, AI can become a shortcut. In high context use, AI can become a workspace. And the difference is what the user brings to the system. So the structural break. So the structural break happens between the spark and structure. The spark is the first signal. So that could be an idea, an instinct, a phrase, a connection, a problem, a sense that something matters before you can explain why. Structure is what allows that spark to become usable. Without structure, the spark can disappear. It can stay, or without structure, the spark can disappear. It can stay trapped in fragments. It could become another note in another app. It could turn into a project that expands forever and never stabilizes. It can get flattened too early by people think that the idea needs to be simpler than it actually is. That is one of the most common problems for high demand users. The issue is not that they lack ideas. The issue is that the issue is the distance between idea and structure is too fragile. AI can shorten that distance. It gives a user a place to hold the idea while it's still unstable, and that holding function matters. Ideas often need time before they can become clear. They need friction, language, comparison. They need a chance to be wrong in private before becoming useful in public. AI creates a space where that can happen faster, not because the system automatically understands everything, but because the user can keep interacting with the material until the structure starts to appear. So a simple example. So we have Jordan here. So imagine somebody named Jordan, and Jordan is working on 3 different things at one time: a client strategy, a long essay, and a product idea. Jordan has notes everywhere. He's got voice memos, screenshots, half-written sentences, fragments from conversations, random phrases that he saved in the middle of the night. and a few strong ideas that feel connected, but it's not cleanly organized yet. So the surface read is simple. Jordan needs better organization, and maybe that's true. Maybe he does need a better folder system. Maybe he needs a cleaner note system. Maybe he needs a calendar. But the structural read is different. Jordan does not only need storage, he needs a responsive thinking space, a place where the pieces can be tested, connected, challenged, compressed, expanded, and shaped before they become finished output. The high demand user, why high demand users benefit differently. So AI does not benefit all users equally. And that is not only a technical issue, it's a structural issue. The quality of the exchange depends heavily on what the user brings into it. A vague prompt is going to produce a vague answer. A generic request is going to produce generic language. A low context exchange is going to produce shallow output. And none of this should be shocking. AI responds to the structure of the interaction. So when a high demand user brings stronger inputs, the exchange changes. They bring context, they bring stakes, example, they bring taste, they bring problems that they might have already been processing internally. They bring pressure from real work. They bring a sense of what is wrong even before they have language for it. That changes what AI can do. AI can become more useful when a user can supply meaning, direction, correction, and judgment. The advantage is not that the user knows a perfect prompt. The advantage is that the user brings a stronger signal. Prompting matters, but prompting is not the whole advantage. The deeper advantage is input architecture. A strong user does not only ask for better output, a strong user builds the conditions that make a better output possible. So the narrative architecture read. So from a narrative architecture point of view, we always start with the pulse. So the pulse is the internal signal. That's the energy behind an idea. The reason why something is moving. It could be a question, a pattern, a memory, a connection, a project, a thought that just keeps returning. AI does not create a pulse. It gives the pulse somewhere to register. So pressure is the overload. Pressure can come from too many ideas, too many inputs, too many decisions, too many fragments competing for attention. Without structure, that pressure scatters the thought. With structure, that pressure can become movement. Rhythm is the call and response. High demand thinking often needs movement. So draft, reflect, reject, revise, reframe, test, compress, expand, return. That rhythm matters because some ideas lose energy when the gap between instinct and structure becomes too long. AI can help keep the idea alive long enough for the structure to appear. Inheritance is what the user brings to the exchange. So it could be their experience, their memory, their taste, their research, judgment, professional background, lived context. That inheritance shapes the interaction. The tool is not in a vacuum. It's responding to what the user brings into the room. So the motif is what keeps repeating. So the repeated signal, a phrase that keeps coming back, the concern that shows up across different projects, the pattern that the user keeps noticing, the thing that keeps returning until it becomes obvious that it is not random. AI can help reveal whether a thought is isolated or reoccurring. And then memory is continuity. For complex work, one of the hardest things is not starting. It's not having to start over every time. AI can help preserve enough context inside of the interaction for a user to build on a previous idea instead of beginning from scratch again and again. And then there is the container. That is the central concept here. AI can become a temporary container for thought under pressure. The container does not replace authorship. It does not replace judgment. It doesn't replace lived experience, expertise, ethics, and taste. It gives the material somewhere to exist while the user figures out what it is. That's the structural role. So the problem with AI did it. So this is why I think the phrase AI did it is often too flat. It collapses the whole process into the final output, but the final output is not the whole process. A user can bring years of experience, research, cultural knowledge, professional judgment, creative instincts, and emotional context into an AI interaction. The final text may pass through a tool, but the meaning does not come from the tool alone. The system can assist with language, structure, sequencing, comparison, revision, but the human still has to decide what matters. What is false? What is weak? What is missing? What should be preserved? What should be rejected? And that judgment is not decorative. That judgment is load bearing. So when people say AI did it, they may be missing the entire architecture of the interaction. They're looking at the output, but they're not seeing the pressure, the context, the corrections, the constraints, the rejections, the reframes, and the judgment that shaped it. And that matters because using AI badly and using AI structurally are not the same thing. So a better question to ask. So the common question is, can AI think? And that question is interesting, but I don't think it's always the most useful question when people are trying to find out what's actually moving in the system. A better question is going to be, what kind of thinking does AI help preserve? What thought was about to disappear? What idea needed somewhere to land? What pattern needed to become visible? What pressure needed to be held? What structure was missing? What meaning needed to be protected before output? Because some thoughts don't need to be invented. They need to be held. They need a place to land. They need enough structure to survive. They need enough structure to survive the first unstable stage. They need to be tested before they are explained, and they need to stay flexible before coming public. That part matters because a lot of traditional workflows force complex ideas to become presentable too early. The essay has to be clean, the pitch has to be clear, the meeting needs to be the meeting needs to be the point. The platform needs the post, the client needs a deliverable, the audience needs a takeaway, but complex ideas rarely begin as takeaways, they begin as pressure. AI can help hold that pressure long enough for structure to emerge. And that is not a small function. For some users, that is the difference between losing a thought and building from it. So the risk. So there is risk here. A thinking space can absolutely become a substitute for thinking if the user stops applying judgment. If the user accepts the first response, the tool gets weaker. If the user allows generic language to stand, the output drifts. If the user stops checking meaning, coherence can replace integrity. If the user confuses fluency with truth, the work becomes unstable. That is why AI-assisted work needs quality control. The question is not just whether the output sounds right. The question is whether it preserves meaning. The question is whether it preserves the meaning it was supposed to carry. Because AI can produce something smooth that still loses the point. It can produce something clear that still flattens the complexity. It can produce something polished that still does not carry the pressure correctly. So the container needs supervision. The human still needs to decide what holds. So the strategy shift. So the strategy shift is simple. So we're going to stop treating AI only as an output generator, and we're going to start treating it as a thinking space. We're going to bring stronger context. We're going to name the pressure. We're going to test the structure. We're going to protect the meaning. Do not just ask, can I post this? Ask, what am I trying to think through? Do not just ask, does this sound good? Ask, is this carrying the right meaning? Do not just ask, can I use this? Ask, what structure did this help me find? That shift turns AI from a content machine into a thinking environment, and that matters beyond writing. High-demand users are not only writers, they're founders, educators, strategists, analysts, researchers, consultants, designers, operators, creators, team leaders, people working with complexity under pressure. A founder may use AI to clarify why an offer is not landing. An educator might use AI to organize a classroom pattern. A strategist might use AI to compare messaging across audiences. A writer might use AI to test whether a scene is carrying weight. A researcher might use AI to organize fragments before a thesis. A team leader might use it to translate confusion into a clear decision structure. In every case, the value is not simply that AI produces sentences. The value is that it helps convert internal pressure into usable form. That is the structural change. So I will link this article, The Structure Beyond the Spark. I wrote about this earlier this month, just about how AI serves as a thinking space for high demand users. I use AI a lot, obviously. It's definitely helped it's definitely helped the way that I put things together and the speed at where I put things together, at how I put things together rather. So if you guys, I will link this in the comments, or in the description rather. You guys can check that out. If you guys have any questions, want to get a diagnostic done on your brand, your idea, your relationship, anything like that, all the links are in the description. And I will talk to you guys on the next one. Have a good one. Take care.